Good morning and welcome to Connections, North Carolina's #1 public affairs program brought to you by Fire Media. It's Sunday, January 8th, 2023. Oh my God, it's a new year. Can't believe it. And I'm your host, Ed Clark. And if you notice, it sounds a little bit different. Val Atkinson is not here. After 33 years, Val decided to spend time with the grandkids, and I don't blame him. So that means we got to have a new co-host. And the new co-host of Connections is Cherelle James. Cherelle, welcome to Connections.
Hey, how you doing, Ed? Thank you for having me on Connections. I am not trying to fill any shoes at all. I'm just bringing some new shoes on in to Connections.
Well, we're glad you're here, but I can't let you get away with just saying that. I need for you to tell folks about your background, and because you are a radio person by training. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have two podcasts, one with my husband that's called More Than, in quotations, I Do, More Than I Do, where we talk about being in business and being married. And then I have another podcast, it's called The Voices of a Black Man, that came out of the time of George Floyd, and sitting and trying to figure out, well, what's my part in this? And what I didn't hear was the Black man telling his story. I heard everyone else telling his story. And so I started those two podcasts, both around 2020.
Yeah, so it seems like a lot of people were starting podcasts and those kind of things because we were sitting around with COVID. You know, one of the things that happened with Connections is we weren't able to go in the studio anymore. So the program is a little bit different. You know, we really depended on calls and people calling in. And I don't want to get away from this without saying that if you're listening to Connections this morning, please still let us know what's going on. You can call the station. You can call Fox at any time. Let them know what what you think about the programming and how we can make it better. And again, there's a transition here. Not hearing Val's voice is going to be a lot different for folks and a little bit shocking after 33 years. But we're going to try our best to do what we can to still have a good program. And one of the legacies of Connections, Cherelle, is that we talk to people in the community, and we talk to people in politics. We talk to people who have businesses, and we talk to people who have knowledge that we want to give to the audience. And tonight you brought me somebody that I think people really would need to hear from. I actually needed to hear from her about 7 years ago when I was having a tax problem. But let me know who you brought in for us as our first guest on Connections in 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, let me just tell you, one of the things I didn't mention, I talked about the podcast, but I did not mention that I am a business owner, my local CFO, which is a financial firm. And I met this particular young lady in business. We are business partners. We collaborate a lot. We share a lot back and forth and help each other out. And it's none other than attorney Katie Lawson. And I call her, my nickname for her, and I'm going to date myself now to those who are listening, the Matlock of tax attorney is what I've always called her, almost for day one. And she's really good at what she does, and she's very knowledgeable. So I call her all the time. But Katie is amazing, and she, tax attorney, that means that she understands tax law, but she also understands just the nuances of taxes itself, right? So there's a legal aspect and then there's a financial aspect, and she is at the crux of it, of both of those, of bringing them all together. And so she is definitely someone that you want on your side before you get in trouble, but definitely when you're in trouble. And that's Katie Lawson, attorney Katie Lawson, that is.
Well, Katie, welcome to Connections.
Thank you, Ed, for having me. And Cherelle, thank you for that introduction. The Matlock of tax law. Luckily, I'm not in a courtroom with the smoking gun, but I can find you a smoking number.
Well, let me start with the first question, Katie, because we're right around the corner from tax time and people will be getting their W-2s. And I'm going to ask you a real practical question right off the bat, not one of those hard attorney questions. I'll leave those for Cherelle. But, you know, a lot of people feel like, you get this W-2 form and you immediately run to one of the tax preparation companies and you give away a lot of your money by using those firms, but there is a risk of doing your own tax. So here's the softball question for you: when do you tell people it's probably a good time to do your own taxes, or at least look at using some of the online things as opposed to going to one of those tax preparation companies?
So if you have a simple tax return, let's say if you have income from W-2 employment, and that's your only source of income, then that's fine to use one of those to use a tax software. And a lot of them are good, a lot of them are great, and they have questions that will walk you step by step to make sure that you maximize your refund from a W-2 job. Now, it becomes a little complicated. Let's say if you add other sources of income, be it rental property, if you're starting to operate a small business, I would navigate elsewhere to a tax professional. And I guess I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to step on a couple toes, but that's what I do. Not all tax preparation businesses are the same. So the thing is that when you're choosing a tax preparer, when you're choosing someone to prepare your taxes, you want to make sure that they're knowledgeable, and you want to make sure it's not a fly-by-night. And especially if you're operating a small business, you want to make sure that they are familiar with your business, the type of deductions that you will that you are entitled to. And you want to check to make sure that the person that is preparing your tax return, that person has experience preparing that type of tax return. And you want to also look and see how long that person has preparing tax returns. A lot of these firms have individuals that prepare tax returns on a part-time basis. Basically, they just take a class online and go in and start preparing tax returns. That doesn't equate to the knowledge that's needed when your tax return becomes complicated.
That's absolutely true. Katie, I just want to clarify. I'm going to throw a second softball as we're getting this thing rolling here. Because I see a lot of people that they're either going to some of those fast, quick tax preparation places, or they're just thinking, I need a CPA. But tax preparation is, you don't necessarily have to be a CPA to be a tax preparer. And can you shed some light on when do you go to like a CPA? When would we come to a tax attorney, to help with that versus just your regular tax preparer?
So, and Cherelle, you are correct. You don't necessarily need a CPA to prepare your taxes. So the CPA designation means certified public accountant. What it is that that's necessary for you to, or for the CPA or accountant to certify documents before the SEC, Security Exchange Commission, a federal agency. Now, not all CPAs are tax preparers, and not all CPAs know how to prepare taxes. There are CPAs that specialize in a various fields, like nonprofit accounting, cost accounting, managerial accounting. So you want to, just because a person is a CPA, that person doesn't need to prepare your taxes. You want to make sure that you are looking for a tax preparer that has the skill and the knowledge as far as preparing taxes. And that may not necessarily be a CPA. It can be an accountant. And I've seen some accountants that will run circles around CPAs. When do you want a tax attorney? That's if you get in a little bit of trouble with Uncle Sam or the notorious North Carolina Department of Revenue, then you're going to need to give me a call. We'll get you out and get you on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, like I said, Katie, I should have called you 7 years ago when I had my issue with both the federal government and the state of North Carolina. I want to remind the folks, if you're listening, this is Connections. I'm your host, Ed Clark. You heard Cherelle James, the new co-host of Connections, and that was Katie Lawson that you're listening to. She's a tax attorney. She's based in Durham, North Carolina. We got her in today because people are starting to get their W-2s in the mail, and we want to give you useful information so that you don't waste your money, and you also don't end up in front of a judge in a federal court trying to explain your taxes. So Katie, here's the thing. Okay, so you complete your taxes, you send them in, and then talk to me about who gets audited. Now, because one of the things that we learned recently is that this guy that used to live at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Donald Trump, he was supposed to have gotten audited, but he didn't. Joe Biden got audited, Barack Obama got audited, Jimmy Carter got audited, the Bushes got audited, but this Trump guy did not. But a lot of times, little people who don't have a whole lot end up in that situation, and they don't have the money for, or don't think they have the money or resources for a tax attorney. So what do you tell somebody as they're filling out their taxes? Doesn't the federal government already know? Doesn't the IRS already know a whole bunch about you anyway? I mean, how, talk to me
Well, they
about
do
that.
know, they do know a whole lot about you because basically all of your income um, is reported directly to them. If you're a W-2 employee, it's reported to Social Security, to the Social Security Administration, and then reported to the IRS. Anyone issues you a 1099, it's reported to the IRS. So they know a whole lot about you. But the tax system that we have here in the United States is called a voluntary tax system. And what that means is that instead of the government assessing a blanket tax against everyone, they're saying, we're going to give you the opportunity to voluntarily report to us to get it right on your own. Now, if you don't get it right, then of course, the audit man cometh. But the way that the way that it's explained in the IRS code, in the law, and with the IRS is that the audit process is random. I've been practicing in tax law for over 15 years. It's not really random. So they said it's based on a score. Every time you file a tax return, your tax return is assessed a score. The higher the score, the higher the probability that you will be audited. Now, if you run a small business, your probability of being audited doubles. And that's the small business owners. It's pretty much the middle class of this country. And then, we pay the most taxes. As far as the guy at 16, the last tenant at 1600, the previous tenant at 1600 Pennsylvania, I do believe at some particular point there may have been some back end deals or money exchange in hand somewhere. I don't want to say that on record, but it sounds to me it's very fishy. Because if every other president that has ever that has ever served in this country turned over a tax return, that their returns were open and audited, why not his?
Yeah, why not his? But before we run out of time in this segment, I do want to ask people to make sure that you stay around for segment number 2, because we're going to continue with Katie Lawson and have her some more questions about your taxes. But I also want you to get a pen and paper handy, because we're going to have some information for you. She's going to give her information, and if you got some tax problems, we're going to want you to give her a call ASAP to make sure that you don't end up in court or end up like I did, which spending thousands of dollars, and then it ended up the IRS actually owed me money. But that's a whole nother story we'll talk about another time. So make sure you have a pen and paper handy so you can jot down the information. Also, in the second segment, in the last half of the second segment, we want to talk about what's going on in DC. If you are not under a rock, you know that the Congress is trying to choose a speaker. It's going really crazily, if I could say it that way. And we're actually recording this on Thursday night, and you know that we're not in the studio live anymore like we've been for years. But as of tonight, while we're recording this, they're on vote number 11, and they still haven't chosen a speaker. So we want to talk about that. We want to talk about the anniversary of January 6th. And then we also want to talk about Damar Hamlin, the football player from Buffalo who suffered a horrendous injury, but seems to be on the mend. So I hear some music in the background. That means we need to take a break. So when we come back, we're going to have Katie Lawson with the Katie Lawson Law Firm tax expert, and our co-host Cherelle James, and we'll be right back after this message.
Tune many women die every year due to pregnancy-related complications. 2/3 of these deaths are preventable. As healthcare professionals, we play a critical role in making sure women's health concerns are addressed during and after pregnancy. Help your patients understand the warning signs and when they should seek care. Actively listen when she raises concerns. It could save her life. Hear her.
And welcome back to our second segment of Connection. I'm your host, Ed Clark. Cherelle James is in the house, the new co-host of Connections, and we're so happy she's here. And in the first segment, we introduced you to Katie Lawson, lawyer extraordinaire. I think Cherelle, you called her the Matlock of tax attorneys. Is that right, Cherelle?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, so we got Matlock in the house this morning, and she's been giving us some great information about taxes and the law, and like I said, we'll give you some information on how to contact her if you have some issues with your taxes. But I know, Cherelle, you had some other questions for Katie, so I'll throw it to you and let you talk to Katie.
I just want to talk about this a little bit, Katie, and get your take on it, because it brought everyone to such an uproar coming into the new year. Last year, they changed the law that fintech companies, we're talking about PayPal, any of those, a Cash App, if you made over $600 in your business PayPal or Cash App account, or any of the other ones, that you were going to get a 1099 that had to be reported. And I know for a lot of small business owners and a lot of people in general that just had those side hustles, right? But they had that account. That was like, wait a minute, what does this mean? And what's going to happen? And what does that mean for my taxes and all of this other stuff? Well, we know that they delayed it this year. They've delayed it for a year. But what do people need to know about it? And give us your take on that.
Yeah, they delayed the requirement for a year, but however, some of the fintech companies, they've already been reporting on 1099s. Even if it's your side hustle, if you're receiving money through Cash App or PayPal, and a lot of people do at this particular point, if you make $600 or more, then that is considered taxable income. And that makes you a small business owner by default. And at that particular point, you will need to report that income on your tax return. However, being a small business owner by default, you are able to deduct your business expenses from that money. So that will actually lessen the tax burden, but it also requires you to keep pretty good records. For example, let's say if we have someone that's actually baking cakes on the side as a side hustle. They're baking cakes for different types of events, or for family members, friends, coworkers, so forth and so on. You're going to have to start keeping up with your expenses, your receipts, as far as when you buy those items from the grocery store, because it's all going to make a difference in your bottom line.
Mm. So let me just ask you this, because I know we have a lot of nonprofits or associations where they may not have, and I don't say associations more so than anything, where they have like chapters. And inside of that chapter, they have someone who is just old school way, right? I just opened up a Cash App or opened up a PayPal account for you guys to use. So it's in my name, but now all of that money is funneling through. What are they supposed to do now?
Oh, and that actually happened at my church. They opened up a Cash App and did not tell me, had no knowledge, and it was in the pastor's name and social. He received the 1099. So we ended up having to call Cash App and have the and had the account transferred to the church, to the church's tax ID number. So be careful when you're doing those types of things. My advice is to always make sure, if you're doing it for any type of business, any type of nonprofit, make sure that you open the account in the business or nonprofit name using the nonprofit or business's tax ID number.
Because, not your personal social.
Yeah, because the thing is that someone as a private person, it's taxable to them, but of course a nonprofit does not pay income taxes. So that money is not taxable to them. So you just always want to make sure you're reporting in the correct way.
Let me tell
Well,
you, good stuff. Go ahead.
no, what I was going to say, I want to remind folks you're listening to Connections on Foxy 107, 104, and that's Katie Lawson. You've been hearing talking about, and I'm Katie. I'm so glad you're here because I know a lot of the people in this audience are entrepreneurs. They have associations with their church where they're doing functions at their church or their civic organization and all that. So I'm absolutely glad that you brought up that point because I hadn't thought about that. And clearly, even the folks at your church didn't think about it at first, and could have led to Reverend having to be personally responsible for some stuff. In that same vein, you're a small business and you're just starting out, and again, money's tight or whatever. Does it make sense to have a tax attorney on retainer, or how do you go about, making sure you're covered for those things? Because I didn't think about that at all, but that's a very significant and very good question, Cherelle. And there's thousands of small business owners in our audience that are probably didn't realize any of the stuff you just said.
Now, and I know with a small business that money's tight, you may not have the resources to have a tax attorney or an accountant on staff. But you do need to have some connections as far as a network of individuals that you can reach out to, a network of professionals that you can reach out to. Even if it's people in your industry that have been in business longer than you have, reach out to them and they'll tell you, they will share the information and let you know what needs to be done. I always, and I've given this speech to the community college, the area community colleges a number of times. I always advise that every small business assemble what I call a bail team. That's a banker. Make sure you have a relationship with a business banker, an accountant, an insurance agent, and a lawyer. Just make sure you have connections with at least those those professionals that you can bounce questions off of, and it will make a world of difference. That's not going to cost you a whole lot of money. And let's say if a lawyer, if you need to contact a lawyer, you wouldn't have to have them on retainer. I would say that the highest cost would be like a consultation fee. And that's probably $150 to about $300 just for a consultation. And you can get a lot of your questions answered in a consultation.
I think it goes back to something that a good girlfriend of mine says all the time, and we're talking and we do a lot of training together. She says, don't suffer in silence. And I think so often times comes when people have these troubles, right, with taxes, or they don't know where to turn or things to do, and they just feel like, I can't afford anything. You don't know what you can afford until you make the phone call, you make the connection. With that being said, Katie, tell us how we can get in touch with you. This is amazing stuff, but I want to make sure that they have your information.
Sure, you can get in contact with us and my amazing staff at the law office of Katie Lawson. Give us a call. Our number is 919-885-4019. And if you would like to email us, the general office email is admin, ADMIN, at klawson, LAWSON, law.com. And we're also located at 2144 Page Road, Suite 204. You're welcome to stop by and have a chat with us.
Well,
that's 204 in Durham, North Carolina, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, because we have folks all the way up in Petersburg, Virginia, and Elizabeth City, and Rocky Mount, Wilson. But it doesn't matter if you're in any of those areas. You still can call Katie Lawson, and she'll help you out. She comes highly recommended by Cherelle James. So, we're so happy that she's the first guest in the new era of connections. So, Katie Lawson, we'll be calling on you again. So make sure you answer our calls when when we try to get in touch with you. And I'm sure that there are going to be people in the audience that are going to give you a call as well. So we want to thank you so much for being our first guest of the new year.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Ed and Cherelle. It was a pleasure.
Well, stay right there. Don't go anywhere. Cherelle, I need for us to switch gears a little bit, and I need to get you thinking about the next topic I want to talk about. Uh, January 6th, just, the anniversary just occurred, and we see the chaos that's going on in DC right now. But one of the things that I've been thinking about, as I was trying to prepare, for, this program is, we spend a lot of time talking about the nitty gritties of the politics, but we don't realize all the stuff that goes on behind it. One of the things that Katie brings up is tax policy. When we're talking to her, and the people who represent us influence that tax policy. Some people can get away with a lot of stuff where when she talks about who gets audited, is directly related to the people that represent us. What's your sort of feeling as we're going into 2023, thinking about what happened on January 6th? Are you hopeful? What are you thinking as you see the stuff that's going on in DC, Cherelle?
I don't know if I'm hopeful. I really don't know if I'm hopeful. I'm a hopeful person, so I live, with hope. But everything right now, everything is so divided. And even in the parties, it's so divided, right? And so you have to have agreement. Even disagreeing is an agreement. And we're not even getting disagreement. Me and my husband, we have this rule: we'll agree to disagree. And that means that, okay, I don't agree with you, but move forward. And so we still have some agreement in that to move forward. And I think that's a place that we used to have, in politics and at the Capitol, but we've gotten so far removed from that because everyone has to be right and it has to be everyone's way. And if you're not with me, then you're against me, period. And there's no middle ground at all. So we can't talk at all. And so my hope is that we can figure out how to get back to agree to disagree and move forward, so that there is some type of win on both sides. Versus it just all being about me and what I think it should be. And if it's not this, then it's not going to be anything at all. That's really where I think things are right now.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I mean, I still remember on January 6th, watching that. And then a few days afterwards, G.K. Butterfield was on the program. And he was talking about standing at his window in his office, looking down at the people. He had left the Capitol building and was not on the floor. He had went to his office and looking at the people overrunning the Capitol. And there are people to this day who still deny that it happened. And then as we see the mess that's going on that we'll talk about when we come back from the break, and them trying to choose a speaker, and you're talking about even the parties are divided, except for the Democrats. In this case, the one time the Democrats have been together is they have consistently voted for Hakeem Jeffries over and over. And I do also want to talk about Hakeem Jeffries when we come back as well, first African-American leader of the Democrats on the national level. So what I need for everybody to do is stay right here. We're going to take a break. I hear some music in the background. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll give you Katie Lawson's information again and make sure that you know how to get in touch with her. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the vote for speaker. And we'll talk about DeMar Hamlin as well, the player from Buffalo who suffered a horrendous injury, but seems to be doing a little bit better. So stay right there. We'll be right back after this message.
Be the difference at Elizabeth City State University and discover your strength, ignite your passion, and prepare to make a difference in the world. Nestled in northeastern North Carolina, ECSU is your home away from home, offering a quality and affordable education in a nurturing and supportive environment. Size does matter. An ECSU small size means that students know their classmates, students receive one-on-one attention from their professors, and students know that the faculty and staff are committed to their academic success. Welcome to ECSU, where your success, safety, and comfort matter. At Elizabeth City State University, students come to discover their passion and leave to conquer their dreams. Whatever your passion is, you can be the difference at ECSU.
Hi, I'm Katie Lawson with the Law Office of Katie Lawson, where the law is in our name. If you need to contact us, please feel free to give us a call at 919-885-4019 or email us at admin@klawsonlaw.com. We're conveniently located at 2144 Page Road, Suite 204 in Durham, North Carolina. Please come and see us.
And welcome back to our third and final segment of Connection. I'm your host, Ed Clark. It's Sunday, January 8th, 2023. It's remarkable. I every time I think about 2023, that means I'm getting older, and hopefully I'm aging gracefully. I'm not sure. But there's so much going on, and we've been so fortunate in the first segment, and in part of the second segment, we had Katie Lawson in here with the Lawson Law Firm talking about taxes. But we also introduced our new co-host, Cherelle James. Cherelle, thank you so much for agreeing to be part of the program. We were talking at the end of the last segment about January the 6th and whether or not we were hopeful and all that kind of thing. But one of the things that I did want to talk about in this last segment is that whole fight over the speakership. And I've been sitting there, with my popcorn, and of course, I wrote my piece this week on it about the Schadenfreude of watching it. That whole notion that Kevin McCarthy is probably getting his comeuppance, right? That he has not been the best person in the world. And people, because your mom always used to tell you, act ugly and bad things are going to happen to you. I'm from Bun Level, North Carolina, and people know that my grandma say, well, keep acting ugly and see what happens, right? And so Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans have been acting ugly for some time now. And to see him having to squirm, vote after vote, not getting enough votes to become speaker. Have you watched any of that? And if you have, or at least that what's going on, what's your thoughts about the whole Schadenfreude of it? Feeling some kind of warm feeling, good feeling that he's having to squirm, but at the same time knowing that it's not good for the country.
I've watched some of it here and there. It's it's the beginning of the year, and with a financial firm, there's some other things, but I have been keeping my eye on it because it's very important. And if we tie it into our first segment, policy, anytime any law is made, taxes is a part of it. And so to know who our speaker is going to be is very important, of how things are going to run and what's going to happen. And this 11th vote, 3 days, it's just ridiculous because nothing else, no other business can happen until the speaker is chosen. And so it is holding up. When you ask, what is it doing for America? It's holding up all of the business that we have because the speaker isn't being chosen. And I believe it is some of the, what do they say? The chickens coming home to roost a little bit from over just history and other things that have happened. I'm not from Bun Level, but we kind of have the same saying in little old Warner Robins, Georgia, and so it's ridiculous. It's crazy. And why not a concession? Why not at this point, 3 days, 11 votes, still denied. How long are we going to hold American business at hostage?
Yeah, so we don't know what the outcome's going to be. Like I said, we're recording this on Thursday, and you're hearing this on Sunday the 8th, and hopefully by then a speaker will have been chosen. I'm going to make a prediction so we can go back and listen to it on Sunday the 8th. I'm going to say that Kevin McCarthy is not going to be speaker, but I don't know what that outcome is going to be. It seems to me that there's some people who really don't like Kevin McCarthy within the Republican conference. And one of those people is Dan Bishop, who is a representative from North Carolina, who has been very vocal in saying that he will not vote for Kevin McCarthy under any circumstances because he doesn't tell the truth and he's let down the conference. Now, Bishop didn't even vote for McCarthy when it was time in their regular conference, in their caucus, before they even brought his name up for nomination. And one of the things that started happening, Cherelle, was that they even nominated a Byron Donalds from Florida, a black man. Now, one of the things that really struck me when that nomination came up for Byron Donalds was that it was cynical, because in the nomination speech, Representative Biggs evoked Martin Luther King, which is a bad habit of people on the right, when he said that the Republicans chose Byron Donalds because of the content of his character and not the color of his skin, as if Hakeem Jeffries was chosen for the color of his skin. So I say all of that as a setup to a question for you, that clearly, there are black people who are Democrats, Republicans, whatever. If you choose to be whatever persuasion politically, that's one thing. But I was struck by, it just seemed to me that to be so cynical in using Representative Donalds, but I guess he's okay with being used. But did anything occur to you when you saw that they were trying to nominate another black person when clearly the Democrat leader is Hakeem Jeffries?
Some of the same. We've seen it over and over again, right? And we just saw it in Georgia with the race in Georgia. And it's okay, if we put anybody up, then they're going to vote for them because of. And it's so much more to the black vote than just, this is a black man and I'm going to vote for him, or this is a black woman and I'm going to vote for him. I mean, we're not stupid. We're very intelligent people and we understand what our vote means. But it over time, we've just seen it historically. The same thing with women, right? The same thing. If a woman's one, I'll just put up another woman and it doesn't matter if there's any substance to that person at all. We'll back them, we'll make them look good, and they'll take them. And it just seems to be a history repeating itself once more.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that, Mr. Donalds finds himself. I guess history was made, though. You had two black men in nomination to be speaker when there had never been not one in the whole history of the United States of America since 1789. In the House, you got two nominated at the same time. Again, I don't think the Republicans imagined that Byron Donalds would ever be the speaker, and it was a cynical move because also amidst some of those votes, you've seen some other names emerge, like Representative Hearn from Oklahoma, and then even Matt Gaetz nominated Donald Trump, the twice impeached, by the way, Donald Trump, and under investigation Donald Trump, and as our tax attorney alluded to, a funky audit Donald Trump. So I say all of that to say that my prediction that Kevin McCarthy, though, won't be speaker probably is pretty solid. What we don't know is, how it really ends, and we need to have a speaker for a lot of reasons, because nothing gets voted on unless you have a speaker. If there's a military crisis, the president can't act unilaterally. He has to do it in consultation with Congress. So there's a lot of big risk involved in not having a speaker. So I'll put a pin in that there. I want to move over to one other story that I think really moved the nation, Cherelle. This is Damar Hamlin. And I happened to switch to the game right at the moment when Mr. Hamlin was tackled or was tackling, the receiver and saw him stand up and he collapsed. And you've seen this outpouring of people, probably people who don't even watch football all that much, concerned about his well-being. Are you a sports person? Because we may be dragging sports into this show, so you need to be prepared. But what did you make of that and how people have reacted to Mr. Hamlin?
Let me just tell you, for the last 8 years, I have woken up and gone to bed to ESPN. So if I wasn't a sports person over the 18 years, I've become a sports person, but I've always liked sports. I played a little bit of sports growing up, and I'm not as avid as my husband is, because he eats, drinks, sleeps sports. I'm not that person, but I've learned to enjoy watching the show several times, the same show several times. In that way, I saw it too. I was there. I saw it too, and it was like, wait a minute, what happened? Because he tackled, he stood up, and then the next thing you know, he was falling backwards and down, and it was very tragic. I think it was a sensitive moment. And I say sensitive moment because when we talk about football, we've seen so many times that people get hurt. We pause, we may pray, they may huddle and kneel and pray, and they take them off the field and they regroup 5 or 10 minutes, and then they're back to playing the sport. And in this case, it was they suspended it. I think this was the first time that they had to do CPR on the field, and in minutes of it, not just, something quick and get them off the field like normal. Minutes of just people watching and not knowing what was going to happen, and then him being carried off and no one knowing what's going on in the ambulance, what's going on at the hospital, what's going on, period, with this young man who's 24 years old. And then you think about the family, and not just the players as family, but then his family as well, that may have been there or may have been watching, and trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, his mother was at the game, which I can't even imagine that, seeing your child in distress like that. I played sports too. I ran track, I played football, played rugby. I've had concussion from playing football back in the day. And American football, and I plan on having a discussion on this, so you need to be prepared, Cherelle. At some point, I'm going to bring in some experts to talk about American football, because one of the things is it's gotten much more violent. The hits are much more harder. The whole issue of CTE and brain injury and that kind of thing. And then a lot of those players ended up committing suicide or having catastrophic health conditions at the end of their life and dying prematurely in their 50s and 60s. It's something I want to talk about, but I also want to talk about in American football, this change of college football, where now the players can, do commercials. They can switch schools. There's this whole transfer portal, and how essentially college football at Division I level has become the real minor league for NFL, and how American football is an odd game. Nobody else plays it but America. We just saw the Soccer World Cup. Everybody plays that. There's opportunities all around the world, but in American football, there's only 1,000 positions in any given year for professional American football to make any serious money, and the risk that people are willing to take to play it. And Mr. Hamlin, when he's making his tackle, it looks very innocuous, but you're at risk. Your life is at risk. It showed that your life is at risk at every moment on an NFL football field. And it's a very serious thing. We're taping this, the news is that he's doing better, that he was able to communicate with his family. We hope he continues to do better. And in the coming weeks, we're going to be bringing in some folks to talk about football in general, college football. We also want to talk about the whole thing that happened with Jackson State in HBCU football. That's what we do here at Connections. We talk about a lot of different things. So Cherelle, be prepared for all of that. Hey, look, I'm looking at the clock on the wall and we're about to run out of time, but I need for you to do one other thing, Cherelle, piece of housekeeping. Give us the information about Katie Lawson one more time.
Let me just say, I'm looking forward to us diving more into football, into all of those issues, because I think they need to be talked about. They're not talked about as much. Katie Lawson, we want to thank you once again for being on the show today. You can reach attorney Katie Lawson at 919-885-4019. That's 919-885-4019, or by email admin@klawsonlaw.com. And then, of course, you can always stop by if you're in the area, or if you just drive down because you want to see Katie because you got things going on no matter where you are. And that's at 2144 Page Road, Suite 204 in Durham, North Carolina. And we really enjoyed Miss Katie Lawson today, and she laid down some facts and taxes for us. So hopefully we feel better preparing for that.
Yeah, that definitely. And we want to thank Katie Lawson. Hey, you know what, folks? I hear the music in the background, so that means I need for you to go out and do something good for somebody today, and come back with us the Sunday after next for another edition of Connection, and be with us next week for Talk Back with Larry Hall. And then also stay on Foxy 107, 104. Listen to some grown folks music all day, so don't switch your dial. We'll be back in 2 weeks. See you. Have a good Sunday.